When she stops caring, it's not always sudden. It happens gradually, through ignored texts, withdrawn affection, quiet stares where there used to be fire, and conversations that feel more like obligations than connections. But what you must understand and deeply internalize is that her withdrawal is not a permanent condemnation of your worth. It's a signal, a spiritual, emotional, and universal redirect. Rejection, whether from a woman, a friend, a job, or any area of your life, is not the end. It is not the final chapter. It is not life closing in on you. It's life cracking open a door you didn't even know existed. Most people crumble under rejection. They personalize it. They let it seep into their bones like poison, whispering lies that they're not enough, not worthy, not lovable, not chosen. And the moment you believe that, you align your identity with a temporary experience. You become the victim of a moment instead of the author of your destiny. That's when everything starts spiraling, your energy drops, your focus shifts from growth to survival, you start reacting instead of creating. You question everything you ever knew about yourself, not because you've changed, but because someone stopped caring, and you let their silence define your value. But here's the truth: no is not a punishment. It's not rejection in the way you think, it's a redirection. It's life pulling you away from what was never truly meant to evolve with you. When she stops caring, you are not being thrown away, you are being set free. Maybe you were depending too much on her attention to validate your masculinity. Maybe her affection became the measure of your confidence. And maybe, just maybe, life saw that and said, "This man is giving away his power. Let's give him an opportunity to reclaim it." You see, destiny doesn't come to those who are comfortable. It comes to those who are shaken, stripped, and forced to rise from pain with a new level of power. If you were never rejected, you would never be forced to evolve. If she never stopped caring, you'd still be trying to earn someone's love rather than becoming someone who loves himself so deeply that he commands it effortlessly. The moment she turns away is the moment you are handed a mirror. And what you do next matters more than what she did. Rejection shows you where your self-worth was rooted. Was it in her validation? Was it in her presence? Was it in her smile, her texts, her attention? If so, now you get to find something deeper: yourself. You were never meant to build your identity in another person's affection, because the moment they leave, your identity collapses with them. But if you build it in your vision, in your growth, in your mission, no one, not her, not anyone, can take that from you. People think rejection means failure, that she walked away because you weren't enough, that you were too much, too emotional, too distant, too lost. Maybe, maybe not, but that's not the point. The point is what you choose to do with that narrative. Will you let it harden you? Will you let it define you? Or will you use it? Will you use it as fire? Will you use it as leverage? Will you use it as a moment that woke you up, pulled you out of your emotional dependence, and reminded you that your destiny has never been tied to someone else's approval? When you're told no by a person, by life, by a system, it's an opportunity to decide how powerful you really are. Rejection asks, are you willing to keep going even when it feels like no one sees you? It asks, can you rise without applause? It challenges the very foundation of your self-image and demands growth. That's why it's a gift. The pain you feel, it's pressure, and pressure either crushes or creates diamonds. You don't get to choose the pain, but you do get to choose the result. This is why so many people repeat cycles, because they run from rejection. They drown it in distractions, sex, parties, scrolling endlessly on social media, calling old flings, avoiding solitude. But until you face it, face the silence, the loneliness, the sting, you won't evolve. Because behind that pain is power, behind that void is vision, behind that no is the version of you that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, and doesn't break when someone else pulls away. She stopped caring. Good, now you get to care more about yourself, your direction, your standards, your worth. Let the pain of her absence become the foundation of your presence. Let her silence birth your voice. Let her exit be the invitation you've been waiting for, not to collapse, but to rise. Not to chase someone else, but to discover the man you were always meant to become. Because when one chapter ends, life doesn't end. It just demands you write the next one with a pen soaked in self-respect, vision, and unshakable purpose. Negative feelings are powerful. They don't come lightly, and they don't leave quietly. When you're hurt, when you're rejected, when someone turns their back on you, it's not just an emotional event, it's energetic. That pain you feel in your chest, that restlessness in your stomach, that tightness in your throat when you think about what they did, what they said, or what they didn't say, that's not just emotion. That's energy, and if you don't learn how to control it, direct it, and transmute it, it will control you. Most people don't realize that emotions aren't passive. They're not just things that happen to you. They are dynamic forces that, if left unmanaged, start running the show. And when that happens, your decisions, your reactions, your future, all of it becomes dictated by how you feel, not by what you know. You might know you're capable, you might know your worth, but if you're consumed by anger, shame, fear, or sadness, that energy clouds your judgment. It becomes a lens through which you interpret the world, and suddenly, you're not seeing things as they are, you're seeing things as your pain sees them. You get ghosted, and instead of seeing it as a reflection of the other person's inability to communicate, you internalize it as evidence that you're unlovable. That's energy at work, not truth. Someone breaks up with you, and instead of recognizing that your paths were no longer aligned, you feel abandoned, and that abandonment starts to echo through every corner of your life. You stop taking risks. You stop trusting people. You start shrinking, doubting, overthinking. That's energy that was never alchemized. That's what happens when you don't do the inner work. Every emotion you feel carries a frequency. Love, gratitude, confidence, they lift your frequency. They expand your presence. They raise your awareness and open your mind. But guilt, fear, resentment, they lower your vibration. They close you off, make you reactive, and trap you in loops of self-sabotage. This is not just poetic language, this is physics. Emotion is energy in motion. What you allow to stay in motion within you either builds or breaks your future. And until you master that internal current, your life will always be reactive instead of creative. You don't control who hurts you, but you do control what that hurt becomes. It can become a weight that drags you down for years, or it can become fuel. It can become the push you needed to rise, to sharpen, to go deeper within yourself and pull out strength you never knew was there. The key difference is whether or not you become conscious of the energy you're holding. Most people carry around old wounds like unpaid debts, expecting the world to somehow heal them through validation or revenge. But healing doesn't come through the outside. It comes when you decide to take your energy back. You've got to ask yourself, who or what am I giving my energy to right now? Are you constantly replaying the moment she left? The argument, the betrayal? Are you filling your space with anger, playing conversations over and over in your mind like a broken record, reliving the pain and feeding it with your focus? If so, understand that you're feeding a fire that will eventually burn you from the inside. Emotional discipline starts with awareness. What you focus on, you feel, and what you feel repeatedly becomes your dominant state. That dominant state becomes your personality. Your personality becomes your destiny. It's not enough to just feel your emotions. You have to master them. That doesn't mean suppressing them. Suppression is just buried energy, and buried energy is still active. You've got to acknowledge it, sit with it, understand it, but then, most importantly, transmute it. That anger you feel when someone disrespects you, channel it into the gym. Use it to fuel your transformation. That sadness from being overlooked, turn it into creative fire. Write, build, speak, create. That jealousy, that envy, that frustration, let it show you where you're still playing small and use it to push yourself forward. You don't need to be emotionally numb to be powerful. You need to be emotionally intelligent. The strongest men aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who feel everything and still remain in control. They can experience pain without becoming bitter. They can feel loss without collapsing. They can get rejected and still keep moving with purpose. That's emotional power. That's real strength. Because when you master your energy, you master your life. There's a version of you that exists on the other side of emotional chaos. A version that's focused, stable, magnetic, not because life got easier, but because you stopped reacting, because you learned how to redirect your inner storms into forward motion. You stopped giving your power away to things outside of your control, and you began to build a core so strong that nothing could shake it. That's the version of you that manifests results. That's the version of you that commands respect. That's the version of you that no longer needs to beg for love, chase validation, or fear rejection, because you've become the source, not the seeker, and it all starts with mastering the energy of your emotions. Not ignoring them, not drowning in them, but owning them, directing them, turning every no, every loss, every moment of heartbreak into a new level of drive, vision, and intensity. Most people go through life believing that what happens to them is what defines them, that the events, the betrayals, the disappointments, and the rejections are what determine the direction of their life. But that belief is one of the greatest traps, because the truth is, it's never about what happens. It's about how you respond. Your entire reality is being shaped not by the events themselves, but by your reaction to them, your interpretation of them, and the meaning you give them. When someone leaves, when someone betrays you, when someone says you're not enough, that's an external trigger, but what happens next is internal. You get to decide whether you use that moment to destroy your confidence or rebuild your character. You get to decide whether you spiral into self-pity or rise into self-mastery. Because while you can't control other people, while you can't rewrite the past, you are always in charge of your perception and your direction. There are men who crumble when a woman stops loving them, and there are men who rise. The difference is not in the pain, both feel it. The difference is in the choice that follows. One allows rejection to define his identity. The other uses it as fuel to evolve. It all comes down to your response. You can internalize rejection as proof that you're not good enough, or you can use it as evidence that something better is calling you to level up. Life will hand you contrast. It will bring moments that hurt. People will leave, plans will collapse, and dreams will be delayed. That's not personal, that's life. What is personal is what you do next. Your response is the real power. Think about it. When someone disrespects you, you can react emotionally, yell, retaliate, beg, or spiral into doubt. But the moment you do, you've handed them your power. You've let someone else's behavior dictate your inner world. And when your inner world is controlled by the external, you are no longer the author of your story. You're just a character in someone else's chaos. But when you pause, when you reflect, when you respond with awareness instead of impulse, everything shifts. That space between the trigger and your reaction, that's where your transformation happens. Most people never access that space. They live in reaction mode. Someone says something hurtful and they fire back. Someone walks away and they chase. Someone doubts them and they shrink. That's not power, that's programming. That's what happens when you never train yourself to step back, to ask deeper questions, to examine your patterns. But if you want to change your life, if you want to elevate beyond emotional chaos and create something real, something solid, something lasting, you've got to learn to respond like the man you're becoming, not the boy you used to be. Every single situation is giving you a chance to decide who you are. You lose money, and you can panic or you can learn. You get ghosted, and you can shrink or you can grow. You get overlooked, and you can play the victim or become undeniable. And yes, it's hard. It takes discipline. It takes awareness. It takes breaking old habits that feel familiar, comfortable, and justified. But the more you train yourself to respond with power instead of pain, the more you shift your reality from one of survival to one of creation. You've got to stop giving emotional authority to everything and everyone outside of you. People's opinions, people's behavior, people's presence or absence, none of that should be stronger than your sense of self. You've got to become the kind of man who is so rooted in vision, so grounded in purpose, that nothing can pull you off course. Not a rejection, not a delay, not a setback. Because the version of you that reacts emotionally is the version that stays stuck. But the version of you that pauses, reflects, and recalibrates, that's the version that rises. And this doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting your feelings drive the car. You let them ride in the back seat. You hear them, you acknowledge them, but you don't let them steer. You let your vision steer, you let your values steer, you let your principles, your goals, and your self-respect be the compass, not your temporary emotion. That's how you build a life that doesn't collapse every time something goes wrong. The more you practice this, the stronger you become. Not because life gets easier, but because you become less fragile. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop expecting everyone to treat you perfectly. You stop demanding that the world validate you, and you start validating yourself. You begin to trust your response, and when you trust your response, you stop fearing what might go wrong because you know you can handle it. You know that no matter what happens, you won't break, you'll adapt, you'll grow, you'll move forward with clarity and force. There is a power in stillness, in not reacting, in breathing, in watching, in choosing instead of reacting impulsively. That power is what separates the average from the exceptional. The man who reacts stays in the same cycle, different faces, same story. But the man who responds breaks the cycle, he rewrites it, he chooses differently. And because of that, he gets different outcomes. Every time life hands you pain, you are being asked one question: who are you going to become now? And the way you answer that, not with words, but with your choices, is what forges your future. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. You could have the most detailed vision board in the world. List out every quality you desire in a partner, in a career, in a life, but if your mindset is rooted in insecurity, lack, and desperation, you will repel everything that aligns with the version of you you're trying to become. Your mindset isn't just a collection of thoughts, it's your magnetic field. It's the frequency you emit before you even open your mouth, before you even enter the room. People feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Life bends according to it. If your mindset is rooted in self-doubt, you'll constantly seek reassurance, and that energy will push people away. You'll chase instead of attract. You'll beg instead of build. You'll accept less than you deserve because you don't believe you're worthy of more. And people can sense that. They may not say it, but they feel it, the subtle vibration of someone who doesn't fully own their worth, who needs external validation to feel whole. And in return, you keep finding yourself in situations where you're overlooked, undervalued, or abandoned, not because you're not enough, but because your energy is broadcasting fear instead of certainty. But when your mindset is aligned with belief, when you walk into a space already knowing your value, everything changes. You no longer chase affection, you radiate confidence. You no longer need to be chosen, you choose. You no longer tolerate crumbs, you set standards, and the world mirrors that back to you. People are drawn to certainty. They are drawn to those who don't flinch when they're tested, who don't fold under pressure, who don't compromise themselves just to be liked. That's what makes you magnetic, not arrogance, but alignment. When you upgrade your mindset, you upgrade your energy, and when your energy changes, your entire reality shifts. That's why two people can walk into the same situation and experience it completely differently. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One sees growth, the other sees rejection. One walks in expecting connection, the other walks in expecting abandonment. They both get exactly what their mindset allows them to see. That's how powerful perception is. It becomes your filter, and what gets through that filter defines your life. Your mindset is your magnet, and that magnet is shaped by your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, and your self-talk. If your inner dialogue is filled with "I'm not enough," "I always get left," "nothing ever works out for me," then that is the signal you're sending out. You'll unconsciously behave in ways that confirm those beliefs. You'll sabotage good connections. You'll push people away before they can leave. You'll settle for less because somewhere deep down, you don't believe you deserve more. And until you challenge those beliefs, nothing outside of you can truly satisfy you. On the flip side, when you believe you are enough, not because someone told you, but because you've done the inner work, your energy becomes different. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't chase people who aren't meant for you. You don't second guess your worth every time someone is inconsistent. You simply observe, decide, and move accordingly. That's what power looks like, quiet, grounded, unwavering. That's the energy that builds empires. That's the energy that draws in quality relationships, aligned opportunities, and a future that reflects your standards. Everything you experience starts in the mind. The relationships you have, the money you make, the opportunities you attract, all of it is filtered through your mindset. So if you want to change your life, you can't just change your habits. You have to change the beliefs that shape those habits. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone who's trying to be confident and start becoming someone who simply is. Confidence isn't something you wear, it's something you radiate. It's what happens when your beliefs align with your potential. People think magnetism is about being loud, flashy, dominant. It's not. It's about being clear. When your energy is clear, when your boundaries are firm, when your self-respect is intact, people take notice, they feel it. They might not even understand why they're drawn to you, they just are. Because clarity is rare, confidence is rare, integrity is rare, and in a world full of noise, someone who is grounded in who they are stands out without needing to try. That's the true power of mindset. It makes you magnetic not just to people, but to purpose. When you carry unresolved insecurity, it leaks. It shows up in how you text, how you speak, how you look at people, how you interpret silence, how you interpret delay. You begin to assume rejection where there is none. You expect abandonment where there is patience, and that mindset destroys connection before it has a chance to grow. But when your mindset is healed, when you believe in yourself at the core, that belief creates a calm presence. You don't rush, you don't force, you don't overanalyze. You simply exist in a way that commands respect without ever asking for it. You have to decide what kind of energy you want to lead with. Because your mindset is not just affecting how you feel, it's building your future, shaping your relationships, attracting your environment. And the shift doesn't start when someone chooses you. It starts when you choose yourself. When you choose new thoughts, new standards, new narratives, that's when the magnet flips. That's when people start responding differently, not because they changed, but because you did. Letting go isn't about forgetting, and it's not about pretending you don't care. It's about releasing the grip you have on something that's already trying to leave your life. When someone stops caring, when they stop showing up, when the energy shifts and you're left overthinking every interaction, every message, every word, you know it. You feel it before they say a single thing, and yet most people hold on tighter. They overextend, overcompensate, try harder, beg silently through their actions for something that's already slipping through their fingers. But what they don't realize is that holding on doesn't protect you, it delays your growth. Letting go is what activates your power. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. The moment you let go of what is no longer serving your soul, your entire energy changes. You stop operating from scarcity. You stop asking, "Why doesn't she love me?" and start asking, "Why am I trying to force something that clearly doesn't value me?" That shift is the moment of transformation. That's when you begin to rise, because real detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means you've elevated beyond the emotional chaos that used to control you. It means you've taken back your emotional authority and chosen to value yourself over the idea of keeping someone who doesn't know how to hold you. Attachment is what keeps you stuck. It makes you ignore red flags, tolerate inconsistency, and romanticize dysfunction. It convinces you that the pain is worth it if it means you get to keep the person. But what are you really keeping? You're keeping the memory of who they used to be. You're keeping the hope that maybe one day they'll return to the version that once made you feel seen. But that version is gone. It's either evolved or revealed itself, and your refusal to let go is costing you your peace. The longer you cling, the longer you suffer, because you're trying to force life to behave according to your emotional expectations instead of flowing with its higher wisdom. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of letting go. A version that no longer waits for closure, no longer needs them to apologize, no longer looks back hoping for a text, a call, a sign. That version is not bitter, it's just awake. Awake to the reality that some things don't need to be fixed, they need to be released. That version of you realizes that detachment is not giving up, it's growing up. You stop being the person who needs to be chosen, and you become the person who does the choosing. You stop craving their presence because you've become so deeply connected to your own that their absence no longer feels like a void, it feels like space for better things to enter. Letting go isn't a single decision, it's a daily practice. You'll think of them, you'll miss them, you'll have moments where you want to reach out, but you'll also remember why you had to walk away. You'll remember how it felt to be the only one trying. You'll remember the silence, the confusion, the way you had to beg for clarity, and you'll choose yourself again. That's how strength is built, not in a moment of boldness, but in the quiet consistency of choosing not to shrink yourself for someone who couldn't see your value. People think detachment means being cold. It doesn't. It means you've mastered your emotions to the point where you no longer allow them to chain you to places where you're not respected. It means you've developed such deep inner peace that external chaos can't disrupt it. That peace isn't found through convincing others to love you. It's found through loving yourself enough to walk away from anything that makes you question your worth. You begin to build a life where your value is not negotiable, where your boundaries are not optional, and where your time, energy, and love are given only to those who are capable of reciprocating them fully. Letting go allows you to access clarity. When you're emotionally entangled with someone who's inconsistent or unavailable, your vision gets clouded, you start second guessing yourself, you analyze their every word. You shrink, but once you detach, the fog clears. You see their actions for what they were, patterns, not accidents. You see your own behavior, the way you tolerated less because you were afraid of losing what felt familiar. And most importantly, you see your potential, not as something you have to earn through someone else's approval, but as something that was always there, just hidden beneath the layers of emotional dependence. You have to stop confusing emotional intensity with connection. Just because someone made you feel deeply doesn't mean they were good for you. Sometimes the bond you're clinging to is based on trauma, on fear, on insecurity, not love. And the only way to know the difference is to step back, to disconnect, to reflect, to rebuild your identity without them in the picture. That process will hurt. It will feel like you're losing a part of yourself. But what you're really losing is the part that believed you needed them to be whole. Your next level doesn't come from proving your worth to someone who walked away. It comes from realizing you never had to prove it in the first place. It comes from stepping into a space where your energy is protected, where your heart is guarded not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Letting go creates that space, it creates distance, and in that distance you find perspective. You find healing, you find the quiet, steady strength that doesn't need validation, that doesn't need to beg, that doesn't chase, because the more you let go, the more room you create for peace, for purpose, for people who see you clearly and love you fully.